Cosmic Comics, Games and Collectibles, your zen of geekism. We carry comics old and new, magazines, toys, games like Pokemon, Magic, D&D. Want Godzilla, Ultraman, Star Trek, Ninja Turtles, Funko Pops? You'll find it all here. Shop our Cosmic Sound Room and pick up a record or two. Enjoy our Comic Coffee Lounge with a cup of Sasquatch coffee or a delicious menu item while geeking out over a super cool movie on our big screen. Come by and say hello to Maui. Cosmic Comic, Games and Collectibles. Superman loves us, and so will you.
Podcast, it's Critical Plus.
It is 7 o'clock Central Time. Going to settle for the Dr. Pepper instead of the beer tonight, but it's time for the LCS Guy Show. The call has gone out for some more brick and mortar representation here. So I'm waiting to get back with some people who said I might be interested. So we'll see what they've got to say. But we're always glad to have Michael Tierney. 40 years of experience and not just selling comics in stores, but also sought after by, Overstreet, Price Guide, and ICV2, and places in the industry who want to know what's going on. Michael is the guy they go to. And you still do that, right?
Oh, yeah. Well, I don't have my brick and mortar anymore. I've gone over to, being a mail order service and an eBay store. But I had my brick and mortar stores for 38 years, and I had a second location for 30 years. So if you put the 38 and the 30 together, that's all it feels like I was a retailer. So it was a long time. I've seen a lot of changes over the decades.
Yeah, and you were just getting here, just finishing up your final order cutoff. What is it? FOC, FOB? I forget what they call it.
Yeah, FOC, a final order cutoff. Yeah, that was something I was advocating for a while back. Back when they had Bill Jemas as the head honcho over there at Marvel. And I was giving them heck because I was like, guys, look, you haven't even printed the books yet. You're telling me it's sold out. We can't order more. That doesn't make a lick of sense. You haven't even printed them yet. And so then they came up with the idea, okay, we'll do FOC. Here's your last chance to adjust your orders. And it worked real well for a while because, it was nice to be able to, okay, here's what I got last issue. Here's what I want for the next issue. Because somebody say my microphone's kind of quiet.
You fade into quietness and then back louder again. I think it maybe just is a little far away from you or something. I don't know.
Okay. Let me just pull it a little closer here. Hopefully that'll improve it.
Oh, that sounds a lot better, actually. Yeah. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, I guess it just wanted to be in the shot. And it got to be a lot better because it was a lot closer. Well, over the time has gone by. Now it's almost back to like a couple months ahead. We've almost lost all the buffer. Now, the good thing about it is, and the reason we've lost that is because they're shipping the books to us a lot more early, making sure we've got the books in plenty of time so you don't have the drama of, hey, it's release day. Where are my books? I mean, I couldn't tell you how many times I was having to unpack with customers standing watching, glowering wolves just ready to dig in, and hold on, let me count them first, make sure I got everything I'm supposed to get. So you don't have that kind of nightmare anymore. So, there was a trade-off on it. You want to get your books in plenty of time, but you lose a little of your lead time. And so now we're back out to a couple issues ahead. But, it's nice to have that last adjustment because, customers change their minds sometimes about what they want. I want this. I don't want this. Sometimes they forget they told you, this or that. And I wait till the last second to put all my orders in. I don't do my initial ordering. I do it with Diamond, but that's it. And, because it's part of my system. I'm using a Comic Suite program, which has its pluses and its minuses. And, but the DC and the Marvel through RPH and the DC through Lunar, I do all those manually. I just go back and do a review and add them and just go from there. I'll just do it all one at a time. I go through and check every item, make sure what's changed since that time I thought I had my initial numbers.
Yeah, and one of the things that I don't think a lot of people know, it's industry spin, but when a first issue comes out and the second issue is starting to come out, they'll announce things like, "We sold out the first issue. It's a great big hit. Everybody loves it." And I'm like, at the first issue hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah.
And you don't get the first issue until you're ordering the third issue.
Right. Yeah,
So,
there have been times I've seen them offering second printings for a book I haven't even got my first printings on yet. I was like, that just tells you that they're short printing their orders. They know they don't have enough to fill even the initial orders. That way, they say, hey, look, it's a sellout. Well, yeah, if you don't print enough, you're going to sell out. A little bit of a market manipulation going on there.
And we're seeing that start to be a bit of a backlash now with the Superman Son of Kal-El book. And I know I keep going to that one here, but this is the book that had the biggest change of a character in it in a long time. And, writer Tom Taylor was, like, hey, no, the book is doing great. Look, we're going back to second print. I'm like, you're only on issue 4. So we haven't really seen. And now that, the LCS stores are starting to order in accordance with what they've sold.
Yeah.
Now you're starting to see that thing drop off, and it's like that picture of the dog in a house on fire. Everything's fine here.
Oh, I know. It's like back the Jim Lee X-Men #1. It had like 5 covers, 4 covers individually, and then a 5th cover made them all into a double gatefold wraparound front and back. And up to that point, I had never gotten burned on an X-Men title. I mean, it was like, well, I went kind of crazy. I'd done so well with the Death of Superman. Well, let me get lots of these, and wow, did I get stuck on those? I mean, it wasn't there. The demand wasn't, and not for what I'd ordered for sure. And but Marvel's announcement, hey, look at this, is a best-selling comic of all time. I'm like, well, maybe for you, but it wasn't for the retailers because we're all sitting on these babies. And I finally moved the last of my copies down. When I closed down my stores, I bulked out a lot of inventory, but I went ahead and kept complete sets because we'd already had these made up before I decided to close my stores of all the ones I could do the whole set of all 5 books, and already had them on eBay. They weren't doing a thing. Once the pandemic hit, though, all of a sudden people just started snapping those sets up. I kept raising the price up, and they just kept popping. And they did very well. And so I finally, in a way, sold out of my X-Men #1. It only took me 30 years.
Only 30 years. Now, I recently learned that there was a variant cover on X-Men #1, and I had to go back and look at it and see it. Oh, yeah, sure enough, it's there. And it's the Wolverine cover where he's got the claws are popped out. So on the gatefold cover, you'll see both hands have the claws popped out. But on the solo cover, the right-hand claws are retracted. They're not popped out. Because if they were popped out, they were sticking right into the Captain America head that was the direct sales block where the UPC symbol would be. So it looked like he was trying to stick Cap in the side of the head with his claws there. And editorially said, yeah, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to pull that off. And there are people who seek out that variant cover specifically because if it's the direct sales one, the claws are retracted. If it's a regular market when it's a barcode, the claws are out. So there's 6 copies now of X-Men
I didn't even realize
#1.
that was out there. Yeah, because obviously I never carried the newsstand cover. That's why I didn't know about it. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, because you get the different one.
Yeah, people used to always ask me, which is going to be more collectible? I can't predict the future, but it seems like newsstands are starting to become more collectible because, well, one, it's hard to find them in high grade because they were sold on the newsstand. And 2, they didn't have the circulation runs, I guess, the direct sale market had. I don't know if they hardly even make anything for the newsstand market anymore.
There were definitely fewer of them. And now, of course, how could you tell the difference? Because the ones that come to the direct market now have the same barcode on them, don't they?
I believe so. Yeah, that's what I said. I don't even know if they make a separate run for the newsstand anymore. I mean, it's just, it's just going down to the one. But there for so long, I remember back in the early days when I was a retailer, they put a barcode on it for the newsstand. But most comic retailers, none of us had, there wasn't the software for it. And so we just got a little picture of a Spidey head or Captain America's shield or something like that and where the barcode would go. And that's how you could tell the direct sale version. The newsstand had bars on it, and the direct sale just had a little picture. And then finally in the 90s, they started making some software that was, usable. I mean, there were people trying to make it before, it just didn't work. And I finally started getting decent software. And I finally, bought a system around 2000 myself. And, just been, it's a lot better. The information capture is so much better. It's like used to, you'd have somebody would say, come in and steal a book every month. Well, you keep ordering because I ordered this many. That's how many I got left. Okay, I guess it's selling. You didn't know because you just be having like a dollar figure in your cash register. Well, then you start ordering for what you're actually selling. Well, some guy was stealing and not buying it. Well, you weren't keep ordering because if it didn't show as a sale, you didn't order another copy. Now, one place where I ran into trouble, I always kept telling my employees, don't put books back for yourself unless you're going to buy them, and buy them within a month because it throws off my numbers. Well, they'd be setting things back. I'd be looking up, didn't sell. And I'd be cutting my orders every month, not realizing I had an employee who just kept stashing one back for herself to buy later and never buying it. And then I was missing all sorts of sales because I kept dropping my order every month, not realizing what she was doing. So, there's pluses and minuses to software. It's only as good as the people you have working for you.
Yeah, it's comic book sales are kind of like hiring drug runners. You don't want to hire anybody who wants the product that badly.
Yeah. I found out I did a lot better when I finally stopped reading the comics because it's like I'd read them all before, and they just weren't that interesting. The art got better than it ever been before, but the storytelling, when you got into that decompressed storytelling, it's just like pulling teeth to try to get a story out of there. Okay, well, I got a scene out of this one. You can literally read modern comics so often, like in 2 minutes. Just scan through it real quick. There just wasn't enough content there anymore. They just really started getting less interested in me. Now, I used to read like everything I got into the stores. Then I opened my second store. The problem with opening 2 stores is like just doing twice the work. They say 3 stores is the best level to get to. That 2 stores is the worst because you're just doing double work. You don't have enough sales really to create the infrastructure, properly manage it like you would have a support staff. And so for 30 years, I was just doing double the work. And I have more time now, but it's kind of funny because I'm working on my Robert E. Howard chronology right now, and I'm going back and reading a lot of these stories that I've just collected. Like, well, someday I'll work on this, and now I'm getting to the point I'm going back and reading them. And some of them are like, God, this was some pretty bad stuff. And so every now and then I write something, hey, that was fun. But the reason I say I ordered better when I stopped reading them is because I just took my bias out of it. I was just like, I just all whipped by customer feedback, and I'm looking at the catalog and. If it says, wow, this sounds pretty interesting. They got me sold on this. I better get a bunch. But wait a minute. Not one person is added for it? Well, maybe it's not so good after all. Or I'd look at something like, God, what a piece of junk. And I got all these people down for it. Well, I guess it's not junk after all. So, it's not what I think. It's what my customers think.
Yeah. Who's the audience you target? People with money. That's what you target.
Give the customer what they want, not what you want to sell them.
Yeah. And you talk about this compressed storytelling and decompressed storytelling. I proved this mathematically, Mike. I went through I got wall of white boxes right here to my left. And I went through Justice League is the biggest collection I had. So I said, okay, give me 10 books from the 60s, which I didn't have a run of Justice League in the 60s, but I had plenty of them. But when I got to the 70s, I'm like, okay, give me 12. I said 10, I meant 12. Give me 12 consecutive Justice Leagues from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, and 2000s. And I sat down and I counted every book statistically. I said, okay, how many stories did I get in this book? Usually it was one. Sometimes there was a backup story. If it was a 2-parter, it was like, okay, I got, one story over the 2 issues, so I got fewer stories out of that 12. I counted a story as, from beginning to end, not part 1, part 2, etc. And through the 70s and 80s, it was like, pretty much the same. I counted the words. I counted how many words were in a book and how many panels.
Yeah.
And somewhere along the 70s, the price shot up, and I was keeping track of this with inflation in mind too. So I'm like, no, this is all even. This is not, it got more expensive. Of course it got more expensive, but I kept track of that because I was like, as the price went up, the number of panels and words went down. So what I was really tracking was how much are we paying per word? How much story are we getting for the same dollar? And as soon as the 90s came in, we got a lot less story for more money.
Oh, yeah.
So the same dollar was buying a lot less. And I don't know why. It's, Grant Morrison took over Justice League at that time, and he's, very much a cinematic storyteller. It's like, hey, 3 splash pages in a row, and nothing but the big word "no" in the middle of it or something.
Yeah, it's like one of the stories that Robert Howard wrote was called Tower of the Elephant. Well, when Barry Windsor Smith, with the script by Roy Thomas, did the adaptation, he basically gave you Yogg, the Elephant Man's entire story in 1 page. When Dark Horse did it, years later, I retold it again once they got it, it was like 4 or 5 pages to tell what Barry told in 1. But that one had a lot going on, of course, and it probably took him just as long to draw that 1 page as it probably took the other guy to draw the 5 pages. Because you still got to come up with the scene, the composition, draw it all out. He may have been working smaller, but he was doing just as much art as that one guy was doing. You get paid for 5 pages for. So, you got these creative people like, okay, well, I can just everything's splash pages now, and that's what happened with the comics a lot. And one of the problems I'd have at my store was people wanting to read in the stores, and we deal in a collectible hobby. I mean, and I had a sign on by my door saying, look, comics are a collectible and investment hobby. Please do not read the books in the store. Well, the problem was bookstores like Barnes and Noble and Books A Million and all these other big chains. They were like, yeah, come on in, read it. Come buy some expensive coffee from us and sit and read, and then we'll send the books back and get our money back. Comic retailers can't do that. Somebody comes in, thumbs up a book and reads it. I pay for that. And I couldn't pay for people to just come in and loiter all day, block the shelves up, and then, buy nothing. And so, it cost me a lot of money to buy nothing. And so I'd ask people not to read it. I'd watch them. By the time we get to the 3rd book, I say, can you please not read the stories? Most people would react well. Every now and then you get the person who get all mad and outraged. Well, how come? Something wrong where you can't read in a bookstore? I'm like, you're confusing that with a library, pal. And that's a different thing. And, they're funded. I have to pay for this. So, it worked out well with me having an eBay store now because I've got all these beautiful copies because I had full shelf layouts. I designed my shelves myself, and I had them where, the shelves, every book was full facing, and the angle on the shelf from the top row to the bottom row would angle out further so you could just walk down the shelves and you could see every book. There was no having to grab them and dig through them to find it. And so the books were all in perfect shape, even after I pulled them off the shelf after a couple months because I wouldn't let the readers come in. Or I had one guy come in one time, grabbed a several $100 stack of books. I was like, wow, it's going to be a good day. He grabs a chair, sets the stack down, crosses his leg, leans back, starts with the first one. I said, excuse me, sir, you don't think you're going to sit there and read all those, do you? He goes, well, why not?
Oh.
And every now and then you get somebody's like, well, I'll just never shop here again. It's like, we weren't shopping here in the first place, I'm going to tell my friends not to come here. Like, good, if they're going to do what you do, that's fine. There is such a thing as addition through subtraction.
Yeah, it's people who aren't buying aren't customers in the first place. So, when people say that, I'm not going to buy this comic if they do this, and then you find out they weren't collecting it anyway. And it works in reverse too. I want this to happen in this comic, and then they make it happen, and like, yay! Oh no, I don't buy the comic. I just wanted it to happen.
Yeah, you get that all the time. I mean, it's just wild. And the thing that always drove me nuts was the comeback of, well, how do I know if I want to buy a book until after I read it? You never see anybody buy a book after they've read it.
No, and you know what? That was one of the reasons why the cover art was indicative of the story and enticing you to buying it. And the price was cheap enough that you're like, yeah, I'll throw that at it to see what I get. But they've got now, where the cover is just, it's a picture portrait of the character doing something maybe related to the story, maybe not even a word balloon. And the price is $6.
Yeah, I thought there was a quote a long time ago that Stan Lee made that if you don't have at least 2 or 3 different good things that you could show on the cover of a book, you're just not making a good book. I'm like, wow, Stan didn't know how prophetic he was.
Exactly. So yeah, I understand now why people want to see what's going on in the book before they throw their money at it, because we're talking about real money now for the book.
And you can tell the difference between a person who just kind of flipping through it, see that they're interested in it, maybe read a couple pages, say, okay, and then but when they just sit there and go from front to back, last page, and finally, when they get down to, they've done it several times. I'd wait till they got almost to the end, like, then I'd pull the plug on them. Like, yeah, they never would buy. They never cared enough to read that last part to actually buy the book. And yeah, it's just, you had all the people want to come in. That's one reason why I always said I would never be in like a mall situation, because you would become the free babysitting service. Hey, go over there and read. every now and then I'd
Yeah.
have a parent who maybe just want to drop the kid off and then go off. And I remember there was one time this kid just worked me to death. When the mom pulls up, she just honks the horn. She doesn't want him to buy anything. Hey, come on out. Well, he won't go out. Well, she comes in with her mixed drink still in her hand. And so I'm going out to say something to her, and she was literally saved by the phone because I got a phone call about that time, and I think she knew what I was about to say, and they did not come back. And she just used me for free babysitting service. Well, she went and got drunk.
And drove with her. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, I can even smell the bourbon, I mean, it just had her open drink in her hand as she walked in from her car, parked outside to get her kid, go drive off with her kid with her alcoholic drink in hand. I mean, yeah, parenting 101.
When you get the Robert E. Howard chronology done, Michael, you need to do a set of comic strips like, the life of an LCS owner, and just strip these things out. They don't have to be funny. They just have to be true because they're funny because they are true. You don't need a punchline note.
Yeah, well, the way I got started writing, because I've written articles and columns for so many different publications, Comics Fan, Overstreet, when they were a monthly. I'm still Price Guide Advisor on the big book, but I was writing for them all the way back to early 90s when they had monthly magazines. So I've written for all these different publications. The way that all started was with the Comics Buyer's Guide. One time I sent them the 12 funny things that every retailer has heard. They're like, hi, I'm the kid, I'm the kid who was in your store last week. Do you remember me? I'm the one who bought the comic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that narrows it down a lot. Or, the woman who comes in and says, hey, wow, that stand-up's so neat. Can you special order that for me? Oh, you have one in stock now? Never mind. It just goes on and on. It's kind of funny. One time I got another guy's books shipped to me. So I'm calling him, going, hey, what do you want me to do? I got your books. Do you want me to send it to him or send it back to the distributor? And I told him who I was. He goes, oh, hey, you're the guy who wrote the 12 funny things. I got that tacked up on my wall.
Well, it struck a chord with people.
Yeah, it's something everybody can relate to.
I was wondering, you talked about special order, and you've told that story before. I was just wondering how much money do you think you'd have left to retire on if all the special orders you had special ordered for people were actually purchased, or how much do you think got lost that you special ordered that no one ever came in on over the course of history?
Oh, I almost quit doing reserves at one point. I mean, it got really bad in the 90s. And so what I did is I changed the way I set up my reserve service. Because basically, somebody come in and say, yeah, I want to start getting this title. So you'd set them up, you'd start ordering for them. And then are they ever coming back? And then it was up to you. Okay, when do you cut them off? It's kind of like you're the bartender. You ain't paying for these drinks, pal. I can't keep pouring them for you. And, the change I made is I quit setting people up for free. I said, okay, there's a $10 setup fee. It was a one-time thing. Didn't matter if you got one book or 100 books. $10 setup fee, one time ever. And then as long as you did business with me, you were good. And so what would happen is you have people go, oh, I want to add all these titles. What? $10? Yeah, but you're going to start getting 10% discount, so you get your money back real fast that way, depending on how many books you buy. Because if you bought it off the shelf, you didn't get the discount. So I gave it back to them pretty quick. But then they were like, all these people were like, yeah, nah, never mind. Well, those people were never going to come back in the first place. So that cut off a lot of that. Now, still,
guilty. I was there. I was, you remember I was writing for another website at the time, not the tradespeople. If you're looking back my history, way back when I was writing for another website that paid, quote unquote, paid, and I was getting checks. And I was like, well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put some money aside for savings. I'm going to take the rest of this and pile it into buying comics that I can review more and get paid more. And I just, the sky was the limit. Well, guess what?
Call that the grind.
Bouncing checks on me. And I was ordering lots and lots of books from Michael saying, I'm going to review these. And it got to a stack. I'm like, they quit paying me real money. And, Michael didn't want fake money either. So it got to where I was like, I'm sorry, man. Cut me off. I can't do it. They're not doing it.
So I appreciate when somebody tells me I can't do it. I mean, that's not a problem at all. What I hate is when the people they won't tell you like, well, he'll figure it out when I don't ever come back. That's put me in a situation. Okay, I've known this guy for all this time. How long do I go? You know somebody for a long time, you go a lot longer. You will for somebody who sets up and then just never comes back. So another thing I learned when I did have to close people out, whenever they wanted to set back up again, it wasn't the $10 setup fee. At that point, it was like, I forget how much it was, but there's so many dollars per title that you want to put on reserve. And I told them, but this is a deposit. When you close your reserves, you can apply this deposit towards your last purchase. Do you know how many people applied that deposit towards their last purchase? None.
None of
Every
them.
person I charge a deposit to burned me again. I mean, if you do it once, you're going to do it twice. It's just a rule.
Oh, I'd be sitting there the whole time thinking, I got that money. I can buy comics if I just close out my account. They're prepaid. Go get them.
Yeah, when somebody says, "Hey, I can't afford my books anymore," that's not a problem. Don't get mad. Like, "Oh, you're not buying books for me anymore." You don't ever do that. People have.
I still came in and bought books. I just couldn't get that big old stack, and I tried to, buy them off of it, but
yeah,
I was buying
the whole
stuff
thing
that
is
I
just let your
wasn't
retailer know if
interested
you're
in.
ever in a situation like that. Yeah, because that way you don't put them to the point of having to be, pull out a crystal ball. Okay, I predict that he will, or you can't guess what's going on in other people's lives. Just communicate to your retailer. If you want to quit collecting the title, or you're going to quit collecting comics, tell them. Don't expect them to figure out when you don't show up again. That's just like the worst thing to do.
Yeah, the really bad part was that I was buying stuff that I was not interested in, but that I was trying to round out the review coverage. So, if I was just reviewing stuff I was interested in, it'd be like, yep, another great book, another great book, another great book. Now I discovered a bunch of stuff I liked and a bunch of stuff I didn't know existed that I didn't like, but there's a lot out there. There's still a lot out there, actually. When you get into the indies, there's so many titles. And I don't know if they're all listed in the catalogs that you work with, because I know you work with the DC through Lunar and Marvel through Random Penguin House. Penguin Random House, I forget. Random Penguin, just pick one. Okay.
Yeah, just a random penguin.
They all look alike anyway. They're black and white.
Penguins randomly wandering down the street, coming into the house. So yeah, it's just unfortunately I don't have to read the catalogs anymore. I just if my customers don't tell me they want it, I don't have to guess anymore. Used to, that was the whole thing. Is you had to be clairvoyant. You had to go through the catalog and predict what people wanted before they even had any idea. And you just went by sales data, And you made, like I said, I wasn't reading the books anymore, but I kept track of the writers and artists because you could tell, okay, oh, this is so and so's on the title. Yeah, he just took it over. But start cutting the sales, and you could never cut them fast enough. There were just some writers who just could not hold the readers. And then those other people like, oh, hey, he's on the book. Let's start bumping the orders up. And then you couldn't bump them up fast enough. I mean, but this whole thing is you had to kind of predict a curve. And, so by paying attention to the writers and artists, that was more important than reading what their work was. It was just, okay, creative teams, who does good work and who does not. And there's some guys out there, you're like, how do they get work? Because, and then it's like, here's one example of one guy who's highly praised, Chris Claremont. But he's canceled every series he's worked on other than X-Men. Chris Claremont, if his name is on anything that doesn't have an X on it, it's a kiss of death. I mean, you would not believe how many series that he took over and they got canceled.
Yeah, even when he came back to X-Men, you couldn't put that lightning back in the bottle again. It was
I mean, he had such a good role going too there for when he was on the X-Men, and then the artist was like, we don't need a writer, we can write. Guess what? They found out they couldn't.
Nope, they couldn't, and then he couldn't get back in the groove because he's like, well, what have you done since this point? I can't make this work in the story or something. It wasn't the same.
Yeah, he never got the audience back, and but he had a role going that was just very impressive, and I mean, it went for a couple decades, and then when the artists took over, and they tried to get it back, but it never came back. And it's like I had read every X-Men from Giant Size 1 up, the 94. I remember this was back when I was a fan before at a store, like back in '77. Back then you had to go chasing every grocery store at 7-Eleven because you couldn't find any one place that had everything. And so you figure out, okay, what time different people got their books in, so you could go and hit the racks. And there's a spinner racks. You had to get there early before some guy comes in and does that crunch on every single one to see, oh, yeah, it is all the same thing in each bin of this spinner, to get all those bindings. And so I was doing that at one convenience store. And I was going through picking out the books I wanted. Well, some other guy was doing the same thing. And I never met him, never talked to him before or after. But he's like, man, what are you doing? That's what are you talking about? He goes, X-Men 94? Man, don't waste your money. That's a number 94 Marvel. Shogun Warriors #1, guaranteed to be valuable. And for a while he was right. His Shogun Warriors #1 shot up to $1. My X-Men 94 was 30 cents. But over the time, I went with my taste. I didn't go with an investment. And over the years, I think my X-Men 94 did a whole lot better than his Shogun Warriors #1.
Yeah, but you know what? They'll have a comeback. They're making a comeback sometime, right? Now that was a toy line that they licensed, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was kind of like a precursor to Transformers.
Yeah, and it was weird because when Marvel did it, when Marvel would license these toy books, they incorporated them into the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
so you'd have yeah, the Fantastic Four met the Shogun Warriors in a Fantastic Four book.
Wow.
The X-Men met the
Micronauts.
Micronauts.
Yeah.
Rom had a whole space arc that just revolved around the whole Marvel cosmic universe thing, and he was just a
crossover with
toy.
the X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah. Those were actually
So-
some hot selling books there for a while. The crossovers with X-Men in it. Yeah, it's used to Marvel. They did a lot with the licensing, and it's kind of funny though. They didn't do a whole lot with Conan the Barbarian. When he first started out, the sales weren't that good. They're like, okay, we need to team him up with Thor. Well, then the sales picked up about issue 7 and 8, and they just went from there. And they did eventually team him up with Thor, but they did it in a what if. And they did a couple of those, and then let the license lapse, because there for a while Marvel just said, that's it, we're done with licensing product. This is back in the nightmare days of Bill Jemas, right after Terry Stewart had basically run the company into bankruptcy with a lot of bad decisions, tried to purchase Heroes World, a regional distributor, and take them global, and man, just hemorrhaged money. Okay, well now we're behind. This is what they were thinking. They were thinking, oh, okay, we're behind the 8 ball on computer coloring, and Image and Malibu said, hey, yeah, we've developed this new technology. All they did was learn how to do Photoshop.
Yeah.
But they didn't know that, and so they buy Malibu, the whole thing, don't even use the intellectual properties, all the characters they'd created, just dumped all that and then took the coloring staff and put it to work on X-Men and Conan and some other, all their top-selling titles. And all they had to do is hire somebody who knew how to use Photoshop and go down and buy that off the shelf at the computer store. But they spent all this money to buy this huge company. I think the guy went and bought an island somewhere, never was heard of again, who owned Malibu. And there was no new technology. There was no proprietary software. It was just they learned how to use Photoshop. And
they
DC
could have been
did
using
the smart way.
Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, DC did the smart way. They hired guys who knew how to use Photoshop. And so they did all these things that just lost money. And Heroes World was one of the worst things, because found out one of the guys who was running Heroes World, they kept some of his family on. And they were embezzling, I guess. I saw a report that said that. So they hemorrhaged money. I mean, they did so many bad things. I mean, and it was a nightmare for retailers too. And so it's kind of funny because Marvel, when they first started publishing back in the '60s, they didn't want to be distributed through DC's distributor on the newsstand, because they kind of felt like they were being treated like a second-class comic publisher, and they were. Then the direct sale market came along, and there was nobody specific publisher. Well, then DC all of a sudden goes exclusive with Diamond. They pull from Capital City. And Marvel's like, wait a minute, well, DC's got their own distributor. We're going to have ours too. So then they also pulled from Capital City and went with Heroes World, which pulled Capital City, put them out of business, along with there was like 7 distributors at one time. The market was as strong as it ever would be. If you used to order like $50 in graphic novels, they'd ship it free. You'd have it the next day. We were thriving. I mean, we were fast. We were responsive. We could get inventory quick. It was friendly terms to the retailers. And then all of a sudden you have monopolized distributors, and all the terms got bad. And it took you forever to get stuff. And you weren't competitive when things like Amazon came along. Yeah, and so we were dying, and then so they tried to go exclusive with Heroes World. Well, then that crashed. Guess what? They have to go back and be distributed by DC's distributor. But then when the whole thing happened with the pandemic, and Steve Jeppy shut it all down, and a lot of that I think was the fault of some retailers. I saw a lot of retailers around the country say, "Well, I don't want to open up. I don't want to have to do mail orders and this and that. Just shut it down. Shut it all down until this is over. Like it was going to be gone in a month." And so Diamond shut it down. They had their Memphis warehouse over in Alden Branch was like their biggest warehouse, and they got hit with all these different COVID restrictions. So it was easier to shut it down, but that broke their terms of sales with DC. And they said, "Bye, see you around." And they broke their terms with sales with everybody. Marvel left too after a while, and so it just started to collapse. And now once again DC had their own distributor, and now Marvel finally once again, Random Penguin House, that's their distributor. So now they finally got their own distributor, exclusive and separate from DC, which is something they wanted since the '60s.
Yeah, I have to wonder if somebody at Diamond just wasn't thinking about the impact on the contracts, or just thought, well, it's a pandemic, everyone's shutting down, they'll understand, they're not going to use it as a breach of contract. No. Dan DiDio said, hey, bounce.
Yeah, I mean, you were talking about on the opening here about how I write all these articles for different people, including the ICB2. And the day that Diamond closed it down, that morning I published an article with ICB2 saying, look, guys, don't be listening to this talk about closing it down. This is an opportunity. People are going to be home. They're going to be looking for entertainment. They're going to be bored. And this is our biggest chance to get comic books back in front of people like it was back before we had all the competition from movies and television and this and that. This is a huge opportunity for the comic book industry. In the board games, that industry's exploded. I mean, they did exactly what I said the comic book industry should do. But what did we do? Shut it all down. And then even when they did come back, it was in very limited fashion, just eking it out. And I was so glad I closed my store because I was reading all the writing on the wall and all this stuff. I knew this pandemic was not going to be a short-term thing because I'm on the city council in the town where I live, and I was telling the mayor before everybody even knew about this thing, hey, there's this thing coming from China. I think it's going to hit us. Hey, he ignored it. He replied back, probably thought I didn't know what I was talking about. And when it hit us hard. And so I was prepared. I'd already bought it, when all the shortages hit at the grocery store, I was already stocked up. I told everybody I know, hey, you better buy stuff. This is going to hit us. And, what are you talking about? I was fine. I didn't have to go running for toilet paper. I had everything I needed. I had plenty of food and it all. So I saw ahead on this curve before it happened. And so that was what I did.
I still got 204 rolls in the corner of the basement here. I haven't had to buy any.
You can find it plenty now because nobody's buying it anymore. I read a kind of a joke thing about one of my Wall Stars books being published, and I kind of did it like people were being told for the first time that aliens are real, because Wall Stars has a lot of extraterrestrial life in it. And I said, well, judging by the sales in toilet paper, you're all sitting down. Good, then go on to tell you about the Wall Stars, but everybody grabbing toilet paper like I have food, but I'll have toilet paper. You won't need the toilet paper, pal. But because I was ahead of the curve. I saw this thing was coming. I knew it was going to be bad. I knew it wasn't going to be just a short-term thing. And that's why all of a sudden didn't have product to sell. People quit coming into my stores. My internet sales just exploded. What? Yeah. Everybody's buying all these sets of X-Men #1? I've had these things for 30 years and it's hot. I said, it's a paradigm shift. And that's so I shifted what my stores were. And it's like the guy I sold a lot of my bulk inventory to, he told me, he said, if I'd waited like 3 weeks later to sell to him, he wouldn't even pay me half what he paid me because he said all these stores are just collapsing like dominoes around the country. He said it was the worst thing he ever saw. And so I had a lease that was expiring. I had a really great piece of property that I bought for my business location. It was tough to buy a really high profile location on a main road. You're right next to the main interchange. I don't know if you ever saw my North Little Rock store, but it was a former McDonald's.
I've been both of them, yeah. Former McDonald's. I was like,
it was the first.
I was thinking during the pandemic. I thought during the pandemic you were going to open that drive-through window back up. Drive-through comics.
I was considering it, but I just thought, I saw what the publishers were doing. It's like they're just not going to give me enough. It's going to starve me to death, and I just didn't see the need for it. Plus, I had all these contracts to do all these writing, all these books there. I'd signed contracts to do like 5 books in the next year. So, I got other things to do. I'm just going to go with karma and go where the money's at. And it was on the internet with the book sales, and for my writing, my recruiters take it out. I've got fantastic reviews on everything I've written since then. So it definitely turned out to be the absolutely right move for me. But it was a hard thing to choose to give up that property. And the day I listed that property for sale, 2 offers that day. The first day, and I ended up selling to one of the guys. I mean,
what's there now?
Property. What's that?
What's in there now?
Well, people probably think I'm still around. It's my first name's Michael. Well, it's some guy who Angry Mike's Bike. He's angry because he doesn't sell comics anymore or whatever. I don't know. But that location was the very first McDonald's in the state of Arkansas. And McDonald's like to put their places into high traffic areas, and it was actually maybe too high traffic for some people because after McDonald's went in there, they came and the city took it was like a 5-lane highway. Well, we're going to put a median down the center of this. And so all of a sudden they couldn't get any traffic coming from the direction going home at night. And so they just left that location. They relocated. And they had leased the land and built the building on there. Well, the woman who they leased the land to, she ended up with the building. I ended up buying all that from her. And it tried to be like, half a dozen different type of pizza places between them and me. And they were awful. I mean, there was one. I had people tell me I didn't need it, but everybody said if they just put cheese on a cardboard box, it would have been a better pie. And I remember the first place that went in there, it was called Your Grandma's Kitchen. And it was run by a group of doctors. I remember going in there and ate a meal at that one, and it was a good meal. And I was sitting there, but I'm like, man, this is taking forever. I mean, you get your food faster at a sit-down restaurant. This is supposed to be fast food. And I can see the doctors all walking around making all these plans and this and that. talking, on what they're going to do and their long range plans. And I was thinking, guys, if you're going to run this thing like you run your doctor's offices, you can't do that with a restaurant. And that's what they did, and it didn't work. So and I thought, well, wouldn't it be great if I could someday have my store in a place like this? And it came to pass. So if you can think it can happen. But you got to think it, and then you got to make it happen. So it was tough. It really broke my heart to sell that location.
The one thing you've got now, though, that you probably didn't have in that location or the other location is you've got 100% sell-through.
Yes, I do. And I have a lot more reduced costs, expenses, overheads. My profitability is so much better. And I don't have people coming and stealing out of my home all the time like I did in my store.
No one's shoplifting from your living room.
Oh, it was awful. I had this one guy had to have him arrested like 4 or 5 times because, the judge kept saying, quit going to that man's store. He kept coming back, and I kept swearing out arrest warrants. It'd take like half a day down to the prosecuting attorney office. And the police told me, well, you're the only guy taking the time. This guy that's all he does for a living is steal. And I was the only guy who never takes the time. Yeah. I mean, people like that just eat you alive. And I can tell you his name. I mean, so I had videos of all these different people stealing, and I had a 1 strike and you're out rule. I mean, you steal from me once. It's kind of like the people with the bad reserve people. If they do it once, it's going to do it twice. And so I just you're banned. That's it. You're going. And if it was like a group of kids, and I catch one of them, and like the whole group was gone because the neighborhood kids were the worst because they weren't really comic collectors. They were just there to steal for the thrill of it. And I remember one time I caught a kid as he's going out the door, and some people got mad at me because I didn't just let him go. I said, I got to put a stop to this. And the cop came in, and after the cop got done with him, the next day, all these other books and the other kids in the neighborhood had stolen were stuffed up under my door. Like, oh my God, I don't want to have these on me. They may find them. And that took care of that shoplifting problem for a while, but I had to catch one of them to get it stopped. And it eats you alive. I mean, you have to work so hard just to make up for all the lost sales. And I mean, they're just people, every time they walk past your store, into your store, they're going to be stealing something. They've just got, sneaky hands and employees.
I think it's funny that the other kids brought him back. Like, I don't want the cop coming to me.
Yeah. Well, he scared that kid too, because the kid just thought, well, I just won't give him any answers, and he'll just have to let me go. Well, it doesn't work that way. At one point, because they were back in my office, and the officer said, sir, would you step out for a minute and let me talk to him alone? I don't know what he said to that kid. When I came back in, that kid was so scared he had snot strings running out of each nostril into his mouth. And he never did get the kid's parents' names, but he got his grandparents. And where the grandparents showed up giving, they're laughing like they think it's the funniest thing that ever happened, So I see where he gets it from. But I mean, I'll tell you what, there's this one, a couple kids, they were good kids when they first started shopping with me. Then they turned bad. It was when they started coming in with their grandmother. And what she was doing, she kind of like covered, try to get you busy, kind of block. Well, I had cameras, so when they get ready to leave, after they leave, I have to go and check the camera. Like, yep, that's what they're doing. As I just kicked him out, I said, "You're not shopping here anymore. You're all gone." And the dad would come up to the store. Oh man, what do you mean? I said, "Well, I said I got video. Let me show you." And he's like, they never used to have problems like this until they started spending time with their grandmother. She was teaching her grandkids to steal.
Wow. See, now, if my kid had come in and you had to call a cop for him shoplifting, and you called me out, like, no, I'm not coming to your store to get him. Take him to the jail, and I'll get him there.
Yeah.
Let me go when he spent a few hours behind those bars.
Yeah. I remember one time I caught my accountant's kid stealing. And they're like, okay, well, they want me to be the bad guy, put the fear of God in him, scared straight, we want you to do what we don't want to do. Yeah, so many times parents just put it on you to be the parent. And every time
I put it on the cop.
Yeah, and every time I have to, tell kids and set them straight in the store, you see the parents just like, oh, thank God somebody finally told them, like, people, this is your job, Now I'm having to do the parenting job. I'm having to be the bad guy. But, there's some kids that just were never told what they should and shouldn't do.
Well, a lot of times also you get kids who, the parents can say it till they're blue in the face, but it's until somebody outside the family, oh, this is real world person saying it. This must be true then. I've never believed it before. Because, Mom and Dad, they're not the ones who get the respect a lot of the time.
Yeah, that's true too.
So 44 minutes in, Michael, and we haven't even talked about what's been selling the last couple of weeks. So what are you getting orders for, and what are you not getting orders for anymore that you used to? That's, we like to play both sides of the coin here.
Yeah, well, nothing's been a bigger tank than Superman with the whole Superman Kal-El. No, my customers just dropped it as fast as they could. I'm down to 2 Superman collectors now. I'm from 30, so that was a pretty drastic and dramatic drop.
Let's do the math on that one.
Yeah.
You were selling 30 of them with issue number 1,
Well,
and you're down to 2.
yeah, it's pretty rough. And
That's a 94% drop.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what we call bailing, abandoned ship. It just wasn't, there wasn't what they wanted. I mean, I have customers who, were just, they were decorating their whole home in Superman. Now they're like, well, what kind of signal am I sending? You can make product for everybody, but you just don't take an icon that's been of a certain type. Okay, we're going to completely change this because you give people what they want. Now, if you want to do that with a different character, fine. But if what they find out though is that it doesn't sell, well, then they try to do it with an established character, and they find out it doesn't sell again. But they've destroyed that established character. I remember
it does a little while because it's got to taper off.
Yeah, and it's not even always this political agenda thing. I remember when talking to one of the execs at Marvel one time when they tried to take Thor and they switched it over to Journey to Mystery and then tried to change the character over to Hercules. And he was telling me, well, Hercules doesn't sell this, so we figured it'd be better if we just switched the book over to him. So people aren't going to buy it, and they didn't. And I was out at a retailer convention in Vegas trying to tell him that. He didn't believe me, but that's what happened.
And you can switch a character to somebody else, and it be a different gender or a different race, and it be successful. It's been done. How long was Iron Man Jim Rhodes? When Tony Stark had the alcohol problem and passed on the armor to Rhodey.
That didn't ding sales at all. I mean, it just kept plugging along there because you still had the Iron Man around. He was going through his issues, so he was still part of the story. It didn't change Iron Man himself. And you brought in a supporting character and put him more into a prominent role. That was fine. People accepted that. But when you take like Thor and replace it with Hercules, I don't read Hercules, and so I don't care if he's a god or It wasn't even a mythology thing. Oh, we like that Nordic mythology. We won't buy that Greek mythology. It was the character that people were interested in reading, and they wanted a certain type of a story with a certain character. And when all of a sudden, okay, well, that character isn't there anymore. It doesn't matter what you do or change it to. People buy what they want to buy, and you just can't do the bait and switch.
Yeah, and you can't berate your customers for not buying it. You can't say, "What are you, Greekophobic? You're not reading Hercules? Come on."
Yeah, I remember when people were trying to trash the audiences at the theaters because they didn't go see that not this last Ghostbusters, but the one before with the girls from Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, the Ghostbusters 2016.
Yeah, I tried watching that, and I've got I'll rate things when they're on Netflix when I rent them. 5 stars, I'd buy that. 4 stars, I'd watch that again. 3 stars, it was good. 2 stars, I was a little bored with it. 1 star, I was chapter 40. I wasn't just 40, I was chapter 40, and that's what I was with Ghostbusters. I was like, let me get out of here. This isn't even funny. This isn't interesting. I couldn't quit it fast enough.
I get a lot of digital codes for reviewing things. Before I had Netflix, I would just had this. My Movies Anywhere account was growing with all my review copies, and I would sit down at lunch and I would watch something, and then I said, okay, finished it, write the review on it, and I'm done with it. It took me 6 months to get through Ghostbusters 2016 because I just couldn't stomach those scenes for long periods of time. Like, no, I'm done. Give me something else.
Yeah. That's, it's like when the Star Wars 7 was getting ready to come out. I'm like, well, I'm going to see that at the theater. I can't wait because I got to see that the first night because customers would always ruin movies for you. You get 50 people all going to come in and tell you one thing. Well, you've heard everything twice. And so, I couldn't tell you how many times I'd see a movie. It's like I've seen this before because I knew everything before it happened. So I was going to see that one early, and I thought, well, 6 months, I'm just going to go back and, maybe one a week, I'm going to watch all those Star Wars movies and, maybe watch the animated this and that. And I started out with Phantom Menace. Took me 2 days to get through it. I'm bored. I'm just going to do something else. I'll come back and watch it tomorrow. Came back and watched. Well, then I didn't even want to watch Star Wars anymore after that. So finally, it's a week before the movie. Well, now I got to watch them one a night just to get them all in. And then when you see the movies, it repeated so much out of those other movies. But I'll tell you what, if Phantom Menace had actually been the first Star Wars, like it was in the chronology or chronological order, there never would have been a successful series.
No. I remember seeing Phantom Menace is the only one of the first chronological trilogy that I've watched. And I remember watching and thinking, it was all about the pod race. I'm like, this is a big advertisement for a video game. This is going to be a video game. Pod racing is going to be a video game, and this is all CGI. That's advertising and trying to get you to buy it once the show's over. And I didn't have any interest in seeing any Star Wars after that. I saw.
That's where I was.
I didn't. What was the first one of the third trilogy?
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that. I'm like, wait a second. She doesn't know what the Force is. She has no idea what it is.
But she can train Jedi Knight with no training herself. Yeah.
I'll get that. If you're super gifted and you don't know what you got, and you're just like frustrated, and a rock levitates. Okay, I'll give you that. You can be like, holy cow, did I just make that happen? How did I do that? And then investigate it. But if you're just tied up and you just get it on a whim to say, hey, Stormtrooper, let me go. How do you know you can do that?
Yeah.
Come on.
I know. Yeah, it had a lot of, suspension of disbelief was suspended because you just couldn't play it anymore.
We were just snipped and allowed to fall.
Yeah. Now, the other first part of the trilogy, it'd be worth going back to watch if you've never seen them. The Attack of the Clowns, the clones, the second one, it was better than the first one. It wasn't. None of the other ones were quite as bad as the first one was. They weren't great because you could tell that Jar Jar Binks, they had intended him to be like a major character. Well, he was so poorly reacted to in the first movie that let's write him out, and they took the droids and put them into his role. So, okay, wait a minute now. Jar Jar can't do all the things that R2-D2 can't do all the things that Jar Jar could. So how can we move him around? Okay, he can fly now. He just forgot about it later.
Oh, R2 can fly?
Yeah. Yeah, then the first three, yeah. When they finally start back R2-D2 and the C-3PO, they kind of wrote the Gungan out and put them into his place. And so then to have R2-D2 to be able to do it, move around like they needed him to, he could fly. He's got little jetpacks in his legs, which I forgot about in all the other ones. Was that?
Never mind the fact that, C-3PO and R2-D2 both forgot who Anakin was, the guy who built C-3PO.
Well, they did explain that in the third movie. They had his brain wiped at the end of the third one. So that was an intentional thing. So they did work that away. But the R2-D2, yeah, they never explained that one away. It's just like.
Have you been watching the Book of Boba Fett?
No, I don't get the Disney Channel. I'll just wait till they release them on DVD and watch them that way.
I'm going to. This is what's happening in the Book of Boba Fett. You get wonderful scenes like this one I'm trying to share here. This has been going around on Twitter. What he just breaks away and he just does a little Michael Jackson spin, just like, I'm gonna spin and shoot. And people are just looking at it like, what is this about? Because,
that's not very practical for actual combat.
No, I can hear Michael Jackson's Smooth Criminal in the back here, just pew, pew. So, Lord. And then another scene, I just saw the still from it. He's in the center, and I guess out to the sides, in both sides, there's his followers, like 7 of them. And they're all riding shiny colored scooters. Each one is a different color. They look like they're on Vespas. And they're like, supposed to be, badass bounty hunters. And I'm like, they're the Power Rangers. It was bad. Yes, The Force Awakens, Woody. That was the first one. Thank you. I was spacing on the title there because I was trying to erase it from my brain entirely.
Yeah, and then the one after that, then Luke just decides he doesn't want to be a Jedi anymore because he had a bad dream, so he went and killed or tried to kill his nephew, and then when you stand outside the burning temple, you see all these dead Padawans lying around or whatever. I don't know, just nobody ever really talked about that part of it, but you had a dream and then you tried to kill your own nephew, and then you just became a complete slacker and just went and hid from all your responsibilities, and he was the hero rising in the first trilogy, and then like, I don't want it no more.
Yeah. Well, it's like no, he wasn't really the hero. Rey was going to be the hero.
Well,
Rey was the one.
The second trilogy, the ones that we saw back in 77 and 80.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the hero ascendant. But then by the time the ones with Rey and them came along, he was the slacker. He's like, nah, I had a bad dream, and I don't want it no more.
Yep, I know. It was. It should never. They should have just went with the books. The Jedi twins.
That's some good stuff in those books.
Exactly. That was all canon at the time, and now it's like, no, we're gonna do our own thing here.
Yeah.
Speaking of movies, and this. I know that movies seldom sell comics, and then sometimes they do. But this one's even weirder than that, because I'm like, are you going to see a pickup of sales in Batman over the next couple of weeks because of the Batman movie? But I'm like, that's all DC publishes now is Batman.
Yeah. Here's what I'd noticed about with movies. When it's the first time they do a movie, that's when you'll see the bump. And the later ones after that, well, it's like with Star Wars. They make another Star Wars movie. Guess what? There's not going to be a bump in sales because you have to be born to be a new Star Wars fan. I mean, if you're not a Star Wars fan, you're not going to be a Star Wars fan. And, movies sometimes will help, sometimes will hurt. It's like Hulk was doing real well before that first Hulk movie. The one with Eric Bana, the one with the Hulk Poodle. And that movie came out, and everybody's like, that's it, I'm done. It hurt sales after that. And so all the other appearances of Hulk never did a thing. That first Spawn movie, same thing. It bumped up the sales. The movie came out, and then the sales went down. Then you have other things, that do well. You bump it up, but it's always going to be the first one because then later after that, anybody who is going to be influenced by the movie, they've already been influenced. So after that, you got to have new people born come into the hobby or grow into the hobby, but it's not going to be anything out of the existing potential customer base.
So none of the Batman movies have had any bump past the first Michael Keaton movie.
After the Michael Keaton, that 1980, that was 89. That was a monster bump. I mean, that was just a phenomenon. I mean, Batman was just a second-rate character back then. I mean, he didn't sell that well. And then just overnight, it just went insane. And, he stayed top tier ever since. And, of course, DC's pumped a lot of creative talent into the character to keep him that way. But so give them credit for that because they realized, hey, we got something here. Let's keep it going. And they did. But, the movies, they can make all the more movies they want. If you're not a Batman fan by now, you're not going to be a Batman fan unless you're just getting old enough to appreciate it. If you weren't going to be a Batman fan before, you're not going to be a Batman fan now. So, it might appeal to all these young kids who like the Twilight. That might be a new core of people. I don't know.
Yeah. So if it's the first movie that causes a bump, what was your rise in back issues of Eternals like last year?
I didn't get a whole lot of bump out of Eternals. Like a little bit, but just very little.
But the fact that you got some, I think, is a positive thing because I saw that movie. I was like, really?
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, it'll come to the streaming service somewhere sometime, I'm sure. But I was nonplussed by the whole thing, and it was very much a Burger King Kids Club kind of film because it was like, okay, well, the speedster. Okay, she's deaf, so first of all, she's now Ikari the speedster, and she's deaf, so she speaks in ASL, even though she's an alien. Before she was sent to Earth, she learned American Sign Language. And I was okay, well, this person is deaf. And then I figured out, oh, wait a second, the plot point here. The Celestials are all created by this, great big giant sky god, and he sends them to a planet to guard the planet because the planet's a great big egg for the next big giant sky god. And he creates them specifically with abilities. I'm like, why would you create one who can't hear?
Yeah.
If you're doing all of this on purpose to make them perfect, why would you make something harder for them?
Yeah, it'd be a better story to say there's something happened to make them deaf, and then they had to deal with it and overcome adversity. That'd be a lot more interesting.
Exactly. But that's I overanalyze things too much, maybe.
Then one movie I heard a lot of my customers complain about that I actually enjoyed. It was the new Shang-Chi. I have to learn how to say it right now because I've been saying it wrong all the years when I was reading the comic and just saying it phonetically.
Yeah, I was saying Shang-Chi too, or Shang-Chi. So it's
Shang-Chi. But it's supposed to be Shang-Chi. And saw that. But actually, I enjoyed it. I can understand why some people didn't like it because everybody wanted Bruce Lee in the role, which that's really who it was, the prototype for that role. And
Yeah.
the actor did a fine job on it. And I like the story. I mean, I like the way they explained away the whole Mandarin thing. And, I like the way the bad guy wasn't really a bad. He was a bad guy, but at the same time, he had a reason for his motivation. Not just, I just feel like doing nasty things today, And so,
Did they explain away that Mandarin thing in Iron Man 2?
Yeah, they explained that away. Oh, I think you haven't seen it yet.
I have not seen Shang-Chi. I have not seen Thor 2 or 3. Those are the only 3 Marvel movies I haven't seen. And all I know about Shang-Chi was that Walmart was putting the action figures in the clearance aisle before the movie had come out.
Oh, wow, that's not a good sign. But it actually was a decent movie, and it had a good story, and it had all the different high points and low points. I never would have thought of Awkwafina as a romantic lead. Do you know who Awkwafina is?
I've seen her in movies before.
Yeah, so she's a romantic lead in there. You never would have placed her in that role, but she does good with the comedy, and it's got the serious moments. It's got the the lot of lighthearted moments, and good action, good fighting, and like I say, you explain away Ben Kingsley's in there as a character too.
Well, he was in Iron Man 2.
Right, and so he's reprising that character.
He played the fake Mandarin.
Yeah, and of course, the real master of the 10 rings is like, you complaining about, this guy was pretending to be him, and he took the name of Mandarin. A duck meal. They were trying to pretend to be me, and I took the name of a meal, of a cooked duck. He's all upset about it. But, it had a lot of fun, and it had, like I said, I really enjoyed the humor on it. It had some good stuff.
I understand they changed the rings to be more like Olympic rings rather than 10 rings on my hand, Hal Jordan going nuts kind of thing.
They're on the wrist now.
They're on the wrist, okay.
Yeah, have you ever seen Kung Fu Hustle?
No, I haven't.
I highly recommend it. It's hilarious. It's a lot of fun. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but it's well done, and you'll get to see people running like they're the Road Runner and just different stuff like that. But you watch, you're going to say, I enjoyed that. You'll watch it again. But they had kind of the rings on the wrist like that on one character in that show. He wasn't a major character; he was a background character. So the rings you wear on your wrist, and then you got Wong trying to figure them out, and Wong's fun in there too. And you be sure to watch him. He's in the after credits. You have 2 different after credit scenes. Have you ever seen Crazy Rich Asian or something?
I'm aware of it. I have not seen it yet. I'll put it on my list.
Well, this is kind of like the Shang-Chi movie is kind of like part 2, or almost like they stole that plot line, because you even have Michelle Yeoh as as a parental figure. You have Awkwafina as one of the characters. Now she wasn't the lead in that one, but and then girl meets her very shy, unassuming boyfriend, who then, hey, guess what? I've got this rich and powerful family back in Asia, and it's like, wow, this is really like that plot line put into a Marvel movie. And but it's fun. It's a good movie. And like I said, it's got good characterization too.
I'm thinking about going to the AMC theater in Fayetteville Sunday when I get back to see Uncharted with Tom Holland in it, just to see him do something other than Spider-Man. But also because AMC theaters are supposed to have these giant Batman head popcorn holders, and I want to get me 2 of those.
Yeah, collective, yeah.
My luck, I'll get there and like, oh, we sold out. I'm like, the Batman movie's not even out yet. You sold out of his popcorn holders? Come on.
Yeah, we put them on the clearance rack, got rid of them.
Oh, but they're really nice. They look like the cowl. They're even hollow where the chin would be, and then the top just kind of pops up so you can put a box of popcorn in there. But it looks like something you could just set on your mantle and say, yeah, that's a Batman collectible. Probably cost $30 for popcorn to get that too, but
could be. Yeah. Wait 5 years to get your money back.
Yes. Well, speaking of not getting money back, and this takes me back to 89 when I would have been 23. The entire top of my entertainment center was shoulder to shoulder Michael Keaton Batman bank that came on the front of the cereal box when it was shrink wrapped. You'd buy the cereal box and there was the bank shrink wrapped to the front of it. And I bought those things up. Like, yes, this is my future son's college fund. I think they went in a yard sale somewhere that I didn't have control over.
Yeah, I picked up a bunch of those in a collection one time, and I was selling like $5-10 at my stores.
Yeah, I know they could go for more now. I don't know what happened to them. They're just, one of the many things that I used to own that I don't
Yeah,
anymore.
it's like anything, hang on to it long enough, and you'll be able to make some money out of it later. I actually picked up a set of the had like the character tops to the cups. I forget what restaurant had them, but the pod racers from that first Phantom Menace Star Wars movies.
Yeah.
And I took them down to the store and sold them as a set for, I forget what it was, $30, $40, $50. But so I managed to get some money out of them there. So, and when that movie came out, I know we don't like it now, but when it came out, everybody had been so hungry for new Star Wars. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's a great movie. It's wonderful. It's fantastic." And as time went by, that kind of changed. I remember when the Dick Tracy movie came out with Warren Beatty. All my customers coming in, it's the greatest movie I ever saw. When you want to like something, you're going to convince yourself, yeah, that was pretty good. Then when
that was the nostalgia speaking.
Yeah, you take away the enthusiasm and the adrenaline, and then all of a sudden, that wasn't too good. I've never been able to watch that movie. I never got very far into it when I tried.
Yeah, it was not good. Although Madonna at that time being cast as Breathless Mahoney was probably pretty inspired for who they had available at the time to work with. So anyway, we've been at it for an hour, Mike, and probably a good time to just bring it to a wrap here and close. Are you getting ready to go see any movies?
No, I'll be so glad to get this chronology done because everybody thinks I'm like semi-retired when I close my stores. I've been working more hours harder than I've ever worked trying to get this thing done because it's just a major thing. I'll work till 5 a.m. many times, sometimes 6 a.m, and I want to get a couple hours of sleep, get back at it, and it's a major project. I call it one of my tasks of Hercules. I mean, something like this. I mean, it's going to be about 1,500 pages, probably 500,000 words. I mean, it's a monster. And
when do you think that's going to launch?
Was that?
When do you think that's going to launch?
Well, I got to get it done. My target was to have it all written by now, and I'm not done. I'm getting close to wrapping up the 3rd volume, and I've got a lot of work already done on the 4th volume. So I'm just crunching it as crazy as I can right now, just to get it finished. And then I got to build the pages, and got editors lined up, and I'm hoping we'll get it out sometime this year. And when they were asking me how long it would take
me to do a Kickstarter.
Yeah, it was a Kickstarter, huh?
Oh, it was a Kickstarter. That's the one that's already been done. Okay.
Right. Yeah. And we had like $96,000 in sales. So got people who put their money down for us. So I got to deliver. And it's a major job, but I don't want to do a slap job. And, I don't want to do a rush job. Thanks. It's always nice to hear people like to hear my stories there. And, I got to make it worth people's while. And everybody really loved that first one. I want to knock their socks off with this one. I remember when I was showing it to the Condom Properties people, and the president said, "Man, my egg rush Burles one." He says, "This is like a ballistic shot to the head of the information," and that's what this was going to be too. And you can't look on the internet for information like this because it's all wrong. Every now and then I'll want to double check myself up against something else. I'm like, where are they getting this from? Are they just making it up? I mean, it's like that didn't happen this issue, or that wasn't even the right artist. I mean, you can't research stuff like that on the internet. You got to have the actual books. So this has been a lifelong project. What's that?
Who's going to fact check them? They got it from another internet article.
Well, that's what happened with the Burles thing. When people tried to be fact checked me, they say, "Hey, you got this wrong." I'm like, no, you're looking on the internet again. Now, somebody got it wrong 50 years ago, and everybody's repeating it wrong. So I've got the thing in my actual hand. I'm looking at it, and this is right. I remember there was one cover on a blue book for Swords and Bars that had a Burroughs cover, and everybody said, "Oh, that's not a Burroughs cover," because what it was is had John Carter of Mars looking like a fancy Dan guy from in a costume party, and caught in the bushes, and somebody shining a flashlight on him. And so, I had to really fight to get people to, accept it. Yes. Even though it just said Swords of Mars, that was the only title on the cover. Everyone's like, that can't be right. That can't be the cover. So look at the actual article itself. I mean, the actual story. And it had actually the same scene, but it was drawn more in the way that you would expect, John Carter to look like, the battle harness, sword to the side. Now, in the story, John Carter shows up in his nephew's cabin, butt naked. Because on Mars, everybody ran around naked all the time. So, that was accepted. Well, so the cover artist, how am I going to make him look? The interior artist, how am I going to make him look? The interior artist made him look, like the fighting warrior kind of guy. And the other guy, he just made him look like escapee from a costume party, and people just like, that can't really be John Carter. Like, that is. And the whole thing, I had to spend so much time explaining that, even in the book, that I never really I ran out of room to say, and the guy shining the flashlight on him, that's supposed to be Edgar Rice Burroughs. I had to fight so hard just to get him to accept that was John Carter. I was like, I'm not even trying to go to try to go to the part about, and that's Edgar Rice Burroughs in his first cover appearance. And then there was this other story, Pulp, in that same run where Swords of Mars was being serialized, had two half-naked guys fighting on the cover. I was like, okay, that's got to be the John Carter cover, and it wasn't. What it was, that was from another story by a guy who was a very prolific writer. It was the evolution of men fighting through the years and weapons and this and that, and that was for his prehistoric man time period story. So everybody said that was Burroughs when it wasn't, and the thing that was Burroughs, people were like, nah, that can't be right. It was just the artist's interpretation, and it wasn't what we think John Carter would look like. I mean, it's pretty wild. I've got it on my website where I talk about that different things, because I was like, before the book got released, okay, let me start this argument now so I can get this thing won before the book comes out. People say, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So that's going to happen, because people are going to look on the internet, see something that was wrong, and say, oh, you got it wrong. Like, no, I went to the actual thing. I've been collecting this stuff all my life. So it's literally a couple of lifelong projects. And then once I get this thing done, then I need to really barrel into my Wild Stars, because the Wild Stars 5, the Atomic Paradigm, that was out last year, serialized. Well, it's about to be offered on Kickstarter here in about a month. But it'll be a hardcover, paperback. And at the same time that's being offered, my next Wild Stars novel, The Orphan of the Shadowy Moons, starts its year-long serialization in Crossover magazine. So I've got a couple big events coming up next month, and want to kind of tie them together and kind of get the word out there. So.
All right. And that'll all be announced on thewildstars.com, which is linked below the video. Every time we do the LCS Guys Show, Michael's link is down there, along with the other LCS guys who, sometimes show up. We still point people to their stores and stuff.
And, we were talking earlier about the Batman 89 movie. I've got a video page of all my appearances, like on news and commercials I made from stores over the years, which kind of gives you a history of the comic book industry through advertising. But on there, the new TV crews came out for a local station to interview me about the Batman. And, at that time, all Michael Keaton had ever really been known for was Mr. Mom.
Yeah.
And so I made the comment about, like, well, people are, worried about Batman being played by Mr. Mom. It's kind of like Pee Wee Herman being Superman. Now, Michael Keaton's reputation's changed over the years. People no problem with Michael Keaton in the superhero role now. He's done well with it. And he did well with that movie. But at that time, when the movie was coming out, nobody had seen it yet. And everybody was like, Michael Keaton is Batman? And so I just got a note today. Somebody on YouTube posted a angry response underneath that video going, how dare you compare Pee Wee Herman to Superman? That's an insult to Christopher Reeve and this and that. So, people take stuff out of context.
Pee Wee Herman is he's got an interesting Batman connection, though, because in the second Batman film, that he was cast to play the Penguin's father. Yeah. And you saw him just a little bit there. Yeah. Well, fast forward 25 or more years to Gotham, and second season, Penguin finds his father, and it's played by Pee Wee Herman again. So he's always playing the Penguin's father whenever he comes into a Batman movie.
On that second Batman movie, too, where he was playing the father, there's an extra story that a lot of people don't realize. In the original movie, the theatrical release, at the end, Danny DeVito as the Penguin, at the end of the movie, he's like, I'm just going to kill all the firstborn children of Gotham. They never explained all that. And then he turned on Christopher Walken. Never explained why he just turned on him. Well, in the full script, what it was is Christopher Walken was his older brother. And so the Pee Wee Herman and his parents were like, hey, we've got this beautiful firstborn child. Now we just had this. Wow, let's just throw him in the river. And so all of a sudden their character motivation makes a little more sense. There's no justification for something like that. But, it gave the logic that they were following. And it also gave him logic to his actions. That's why he wanted revenge on all the firstborn children of Gotham, because he was thrown out for firstborn children. So not only was he going to get revenge on that child, he was going to kill all the other firstborn children of Gotham by, sending all those rockets after him. I mean, when you get the rest of the story and find out what was going on, all of a sudden the story makes a little more sense. But you know how they were back in superhero movies back then. Just action, don't worry about making sense.
Yeah, the novelizations are always better than the movies, it seems like. The Riddler and Two-Face, that was a great book. Horrible movie. But it was a great novelization by Peter David, who also did a great novelization for Swamp Thing Returns. That book was fantastic, and the movie was yikes.
Yeah, all I remember is the advertisement was Heather Locklear talking about how she's a vegetarian. Yeah, we're not going to. Yeah. But go back to that Danny DeVito movie of Batman, he was running for office. And he's giving a speech, and everybody's like, yay, yay. The Batman comes over the intercom, starts playing a secret recording he had of the people going, I play this city like a harp from hell. The people start booing. So then he starts to run away. The police pull their guns and start shooting at him for having given a bad speech.
Yes.
Can you imagine what politics would be like today? If you could take out, all right, that's a shoot on side offense. All right, I didn't like what he said.
Oh, man. Yeah, it was
there was no logic in a lot of those movies. They just people just go for the action. It don't have to make sense.
Well, that was the first time when he started bringing in more than one villain, and you started to realize that Hollywood writers didn't have a handle on how to do two plots at one time.
Right, and that's why the Marvel movies have done so well, is they pay attention to minutia and detail like that. I mean, like I was just explaining about the Mandarin in Iron Man 2 being explained away, and even the character even brought into the new movie with Shang-Chi. And, that brings it all together. It makes sense. And, he was just an actor. And he, turned out he thought he was being hired by a director for BBC. Turned out he was actually trying to take over the world. And there's another scene in there you'll watch it. I'm not giving any plot points away, but, the big battle, people dying all over the place, monsters attacking. And there's this other little kind of alien little monster that he'd been as a pet, and it's coming up to Ben Kingsley, and he's lying on the ground. It's bumping him you're like, oh, this is the sad scene of him being killed. And he looks up, hey mate, I'm okay. I'm just playing a role. Now get down here and act like you're dead. And he goes back to acting like he's dead. He's just like, I'm an actor. I'm playing a role. That's why we come up, introduce new people. I'm not trying to hurt anybody. I'm just an actor playing a role. I'm
just a dude playing a dude who's playing another dude.
Yeah.
Robert Downey Jr. again, by the way.
Yeah, he was kind of fun. Yeah, Big Kingsley did well on there. I enjoyed the movie. I mean, it had a lot of stuff, and then you get Wong singing karaoke. So, yeah,
you almost had me ready to look it up and watch it now, but now I'm going to have to just wait until I stumble across it by accident. Next, I forget what the Marvel movie is. I know there's big controversy about killing the Black Panther off screen and having replaced with a new character, Black Panther, like Shuri. And I'm sitting here thinking, can you imagine if DC Comics had just decided to say, you know what, we're going to put Superman in a wheelchair because Christopher Reeve can't play the role anymore.
Yeah.
No, you recast. Sorry. I can't see anybody else being Iron Man other than Robert Downey Jr. right now either. But 20 years down the road, it's going to be another actor playing that.
They recast Rhodey.
They did. Yes, they did.
Yeah. So now if they want,
I wouldn't crazy about it either because Rhodey was like a big dude, and Don Cheadle's not.
Yeah. Now they really want to blow up the internet, though. They can say, okay, Black Panther is going to be a new guy to be Black Panther. It's a white guy from South Africa.
Yes. Well, somebody did blow up the internet with that because they had a drawing of the Black Panther, and he had his mask off, and he was holding it, and it was Star-Lord.
Oh,
it was like a what if for they were making fun of the What If series on Disney, which is animated, and I think it was whole T'Challa gets killed during the alien attack, and T'Chaka is angry and he's going to fight, and he finds young Peter Quill crying at the gravesite where his mother's just died, and now he's alone, and he has this change of heart, and he's like, I'm taking you, you'll be mine, and he raises Peter Quill as the Prince of Wakanda.
Yeah.
Why not
make a change there? But Marvel pays attention to the detail. That's one of the things that makes it so good. And they didn't used to do that in those old movies in the 90s and the 80s, but they were so much better than what you had in the 70s and before that. So there's been an evolution.
Streaming.
And they found out when you connect really good storytelling with really good graphics, comics are a very fertile ground for some real good entertainment.
Amazing how that works. All right, Mike. We're gonna wrap it up now. It's been fun. We'll do this again in 2 weeks. I'm still going to, hey, if you're watching this and you're an LCS guy and you'd like to jump in and talk shop, let us know. Hit us up in our DMs at Twitter on at Critical Blast on Twitter.com. Email us at blastcritical@gmail.com. We're on Facebook, Critical Blast. We're on YouTube, Critical Blast. You can find us. It's not that hard. We're there. We're available. We're open. So we look forward to hearing from you. Mike, thank you so much for showing up tonight.
Fun as always.
In the chat, appreciate all the people in the chat being here. We don't have a show without you. And as always, while you were here, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.